All right, so let's dive into this LLM chunking thing for ARAG applications. It's been a
Uh-huh.
pretty hot topic. I know everyone's trying to optimize those applications. Honestly, who isn't? And there's so much info out there. But today, we're going to cut through the hype and really get to what works. Our goal is to uncover the most effective techniques and maybe even some surprising ones for achieving top-notch results.
Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating challenge, especially with just the sheer volume of data these applications work with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to kind of guide us through all this, we have a really cool Medium article by Shrest Shukla. He's a data and AI pro working with Microsoft Fabric at EY. He really goes beyond the basics with this. Now, I know we're all familiar with the standard methods like recursive character text splitter.
hmm
They work. But I think we're ready for something more, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. That's where it gets really interesting. I think a lot of people initially think, why not just feed the entire text to a large language model? Just
Mhm.
let it handle all the chunking.
Right? Seems almost too easy. Like, here you go, super smart LLM, figure it out.
Yeah.
But then reality sets in.
It does. Cost is a big hurdle. Processing huge amounts of text through LLMs can get really expensive, especially for large-scale applications.
Well, how do we get around that?
Well, there are some really clever strategies that the OpenAI community's been discussing. They're using LLMs, but in sort of more nuanced ways, to guide the chunking process. And that's what Shukla dives into in this article. One that really caught my eye was this hierarchical outlining.
Okay, yeah. Tell me more about hierarchical outlining.
So imagine the LLM creating like a highly detailed table of contents for your document. It's not just picking out headings, but really mapping out the entire structure, the main points, and even the relationships between the different sections. And then that outline becomes the blueprint for creating your chunks.
So it's not just dividing the text into those arbitrary chunks. It's using the LLM to understand the content and create chunks that really make sense. Chunks that are actually um, relevant to the overall message.
Exactly. And there are other approaches that use the LLM's intelligence this way to guide the chunking process. Another one that I saw combines regular expressions with an LLM's ability to recognize headers.
Now, regular expressions, those patterns we use to find specific info in the text, right?
Exactly. So by combining those with the LLM's understanding of headers, you get even more refined chunks, ones that really align with how the information flows naturally.
It's like you're using the existing signposts in the text to guide the chunking process.
Yeah.
It just seems really elegant.
Yeah, it is. And then there's a method that uses LLMs for summarization.
Ah, summarization. Always a handy tool.
It is. So you can use the LLM to create mini summaries of sections of the text. And those summaries can be combined into like a final concise overview, or they can even be used as the chunks themselves.
That's interesting. So you're not just chunking, you're actually distilling the content, adding a whole other layer of value there.
Exactly, and these methods all sort of share this common thread. They're using the LLM to understand the structure and the meaning of the document before breaking it up. But, as we said, using LLMs for everything can get expensive.
Yeah, for sure. The cost factor is definitely something we need to keep in mind. What about for those of us with a tighter budget?
Well, Shikla explores some really intriguing options that move away from LLMs for every step. One tool he highlights is called Llama Chunker, and it's quite different from what we've discussed so far.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How is Llama Chunker different?
Instead of creating chunks directly, it actually uses the LLM to identify the best places to break the text.
So it's like a reverse chunker. Instead of
Oh.
saying, here's a chunk, it's saying, don't cut here. This section is crucial.
That's a great way to put it. It's definitely an innovative approach, although cost is still a consideration. It's definitely something to keep an eye on as the landscape of token pricing evolves. It is exciting. Now, while these newer tools have so much potential, sometimes a simpler approach can be just as effective.
You mean those, per page summaries? I mean, they've been around forever, but I guess I can see how they'd still be useful for certain things.
Exactly. Like think about documents with a really clear structure, page by page, like legal contracts or research papers. Generating a concise summary for each page, it can be a really efficient way to extract key information without breaking the bank.
Yeah, that's true. But let's be real, a simple summary could miss those important connections. Those ones that span across multiple pages.
That's true. And that's where those more advanced tools that we talked about can really shine. You remember Llama Sherpa?
Oh, yeah. The one that really digs into the document's structure.
Exactly. It goes beyond just analyzing headings. It actually maps out that entire hierarchical structure, so it understands how all the different sections relate to each other. This lets it create super relevant chunks that capture the flow of information.
So it's like having an LLM that's not just reading the text, but like actually grasping the logic and organization behind it.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of LLMs that go beyond text, have you heard of Vision RAG?
Vision rag. Sounds like we're entering science fiction territory.
Uh-huh. You could say that. This is where it gets really wild, especially for documents that aren't just text. You know, those complex PDFs with charts and diagrams and images, all that. Instead of trying to extract the text and chunk it traditionally, VisionRag treats the whole page as an image.
Hold on, so we're not even dealing with text anymore.
We're going beyond text. VisionRag leverages these powerful vision language models. These models can analyze the visual and textual elements at the same time.
Wow, so we're like teaching models to see and understand information the way we do. But wouldn't that be crazy expensive computationally?
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
But the insights you can get are pretty groundbreaking. Think about it. You could automate the analysis of scientific papers with all those complex visuals, or extract info from infographics, even generate captions and descriptions for images in real time. So many possibilities.
This is all super fascinating, but I have to ask, what about those of us working with, more limited budgets? Are these cutting-edge techniques even realistic for us?
That's a great question, and Shukla definitely addresses that in the article. He makes it clear that while LLMs are incredible, they're not always the most practical, especially when you're watching the budget.
So what's the alternative?
Well, there are some super effective chunking approaches, ones that don't rely so much on LLMs, which really helps to keep the cost down.
Oh, that's good to know. What are some of those approaches?
He talks about semantic and clustering-based chunking. These methods analyze the meaning and relationships between words to group related text together. So you end up with meaningful chunks without needing all that LLM processing.
So instead of using the LLM's intelligence, these methods use the relationships that are already in the text itself.
Precisely. They're focused on the inherent structure and meaning, which can be surprisingly effective. He also points to this really interesting chunking analysis study. It looked at how well different approaches perform with different languages.
That sounds like a really useful resource. I'm guessing it shows that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
You got it. The best approach always depends on the specific language you're dealing with, the type of content, the outcome you're after, and of course, your budget.
Makes sense. Got to choose the right tool for the job.
Exactly. Oh, before we move on, there's one more LLM-based approach I want to touch on, propositional chunking.
Propositional chunking. Okay, I'm listening.
So this involves using an LLM to turn sentences into what we call propositions.
And what exactly is a proposition in this context?
Think of it as like a really condensed statement. It captures the core meaning of a sentence, like extracting the pure essence of an idea.
So instead of just breaking up the text, we're using the LM to create these like super concentrated nuggets of meaning.
You got it. And these propositions become super valuable for certain tasks, things like semantic analysis or clustering, where understanding the deeper meaning and relationships is really important.
This is like next level chunking. Yeah. It's not just breaking things apart. It's about understanding what the text really means.
Yeah, it's about going beyond just the surface, moving from a purely syntactic view of text to a semantic one. And that opens up so many possibilities.
I see what you mean. It's like we're moving past the words themselves and getting to those deeper layers of meaning.
Exactly. And with all these approaches, we've really explored a whole range of techniques.
We have, from simple per-page summaries to the mind-blowing vision rag. Clearly, there's a whole world of chunking strategies out there. But with so many options, where do we even start?
That's the big question, isn't it? And there's no easy answer.
So how do we navigate this whole chunking landscape? How do we find the best approach for what we need?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. It's like we went from basic hand tools to a whole workshop full of specialized equipment.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And just like any craftsperson, we need to know which tool's right for the job.
Exactly. It comes down to knowing what you're trying to achieve, what resources you've got, and of course the type of content you're working with.
So if I'm working with tons of scientific papers, the ones full of complex visuals, then Vision Rag might be the best choice, even if it takes more resources.
Exactly.
But if you're on a tighter budget and the content's mostly text, then maybe semantic chunking would be a better place to start.
Makes sense.
It's all about finding that balance between getting results and not breaking the bank. And honestly, I'm blown away by how much all this has changed. It feels like just yesterday we were talking about basic text splitting. And now we're talking about models that can understand images. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And it's not slowing down. Just imagine what LLMs will be able to do in a year or two.
I can only imagine. New chunking techniques, even smarter models,
Uh,
maybe even totally new ways of working with information, things we haven't even thought of yet.
exactly. That's what's so great about this field. It never stops evolving. So as you're working with LLM chunking, just stay curious and don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah, try new things, challenge the assumptions, push the boundaries. Who knows what you'll find?
And remember, the best way to do things for you might not be the one everyone's talking about. It's about finding what works for your goals, your resources, and your data.
That's such an important point. There's no one right answer. It's all about understanding the tools, knowing what you need, and making smart decisions.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And as you explore all this, share what you learn with the community, the challenges you face, the insights you gain, all of it.
We can all learn from each other,
Yeah.
help each other out, and push this field forward.
It's like we're all explorers, venturing out into uncharted territory.
Exactly.
And together we can do amazing things. Unlock the full potential of LLMs and totally change the way we work with information.
This has been an awesome deep dive.
It really has. We've covered so much. From the basics of chunking to the really cutting-edge stuff.
And it doesn't end here. To everyone listening, take what we've talked about and try it out. Experiment, explore, and never lose that curiosity.
Keep asking questions. The more we ask, the more we learn. And the more we can do with these incredible technologies.
So on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.